The rats are leaving the sinking ship, Donald. Bill Stepien and Jason Miller know it's over. Even Jared knows. And you know what they're doing?
Use test board.
Spinning to make themselves look good, saying it's all your fault. Blaming you. Calling your ad strategy half-assed.
Greatest nation ever to exist.
Too small to move the needle.
They're not small, are they? I never heard that one before.
Spending the last of your donations. There's no strategy.
FEMA allocated.
They've blown it.
What happened? Was there money that just disappeared?
Nothing's working. You're losing.
Could you imagine if I lose? What am I going to do?
And they're laughing all the way to the bank.
The Forum 2, exclusively on YouTube Live, weekdays from 9 a.m. until 10 a.m. Central Standard Time. We tackle the tough issues, political, social, cultural, and racial. It may not be what you expect to hear, but we will definitely give you what you need to know. Check out our website, theforum2.com. Call in live, 414-395-0484. Check us out. Good morning. Welcome to the program. Today is Monday, October 26th, 2020. We're 8 days away from Election Day. And I have questions. I'm sure some of you may have some questions as well. We're going to try and get those questions answered. Julietta Henry, who is the director of the Milwaukee County Elections Board, she's going to join us in a couple of minutes because there's a lot of unknowns and we don't really want any unknowns. So when you go and cast your ballot early or you cast it by mail, where does it go? How is it counted? If there are some inconsistencies on the ballot, I know that if you go to an in-person voting location on Election Day, you can ask someone for assistance, or if your ballot is rejected there on the spot, someone can immediately give you another ballot. But if you have mailed your ballot in or you cast it absentee in person and then it gets processed sometime later, how are those ballots that are a little bit ambiguous processed? And so we're going to ask Julietta some questions and hopefully we'll have answers to them, because we have to have a level of faith in the process. And I know it's been tough because of all of the misinformation and the president, even going back to 2016, saying that he was, going to cast doubt on the election results. Even with him being on the ballot, he still has not given his own faith in the process in which he is the head of the federal government. So we're going to have that conversation with Julietta Henry in a couple of minutes. So I want to show you guys something. Hang on a second, make sure I can see myself. So I receive a lot of stuff in the mail, as I'd imagine a lot of you do as well. If you're a registered voter, your name and your address is public. It's available. It's available for purchase, and different political parties and different organizations can get your voter registration information, name, address. It's not much more than that, maybe some basic demographic information, and they can send you things, not just for the purposes of getting out the vote, but really for any purpose whatsoever. Because if you know someone is a registered voter, you can deduct a lot of things from that. They're more civically engaged, they're civically minded, whatever. That's totally fine. It's public information. I'd rather people look me up and see that I'm a registered voter than look me up and see that I'm not. But with that being said, especially with a campaign like the Biden campaign that is flush with cash, they send you a lot of stuff. It takes a lot of reminders to get somebody to do something. That's why you'll never just see one Coca-Cola commercial or one commercial for McDonald's or one commercial for Burger King or Walmart. You'll see a lot of them because it takes a lot of just bombarding people with images to get them to commit to shopping somewhere, to buying something, or to voting. I want to show you guys something. Let me show you something. So here's one. I got to make sure I can see myself here. Where's Sherwin at? There he is. Hold on. Oh, there we go. Okay. That's one. That's two. No, I'm not done. No. Joe Biden's plan for Wisconsin. Oh, it's just a one pager? No. It's this little book. Okay. Build Back Better. Wonder who came up with that. We're going to build back better. Oh, snap. Barack sent me something in the mail. Hey, mama and them. Barack sent us something in the mail. Okay. Make your plan to vote. We're hearing a lot of that because you do need a plan. And when they say make your plan to vote, are you going to vote in person on election day? Are you going to vote early? If you do vote early and you live in and around Milwaukee County, I posted the locations and the times for every community in Milwaukee County. There are 19 different cities and municipalities and suburbs and villages in Milwaukee County. I posted the times and locations for all of them. Share that, please. Thank you. But then there's this one. Oh, by the way, so all these pieces that I received, okay, these all came on Saturday. All this stuff came in a single day, one day. But then I got this one, the pièce de résistance. Make sure you can see this. Who else got this? If you live in Milwaukee and you're probably Black, I put something on where I posted, I don't know, it's so many damn pages and Twitters. So I posted this to see if anybody else received, why does it keep doing that? See if anybody else received this. This is a militia recruitment for Black men. And I didn't notice anybody else saying that they had received, I'm going to read something for you. Who's Afraid of Black Power? And the organization is Black Men Build. And Justin, our wonderful moderator, went and did a little research on this. And somebody thought like, oh, this is like a Russian group. Oh, this is fake. Nah, they're a real group. And then they have a Facebook page. And so they give the little information. They got a Twitter, they got a Facebook, they got an Instagram. So I was already on Facebook. So I went to their Facebook page and I was going to join the group to see who these folks are. Black Men Build. I've never heard of them. Are they local? Are they national? So I went to the Facebook page to try and join the group. And you can't just join the group. Sometimes when you join different social media groups, they ask you a series of questions and you have to commit to being a nice person and you won't argue with people, whatever. So not only did they ask questions, you had to click a link and fill out a questionnaire to be admitted into the Facebook group, which I did not do, because when you start clicking on links, that's when shady things can happen. They can capture your information, whatever the case may be. But it says, Black man, like it's addressed to me, Black man. We are in the midst of a war that we are not winning. Our opposition is organized across countries and continents. To win, we must be organized. To be organized takes a process of discipline and aligning our principles, our goals, our vision, and our actions. And that all sounds fairly decent, well, and good. We are Black men working with Black men to serve our communities, to be critical free thinkers, to speak the truth, to teach others, and to build the social, economic, political, and spiritual tools needed to evolve and power our Black future. Very encouraging, but also the words very much of revolution, because at the heart of revolution are these different social and intellectual and spiritual tenets. Here's the back, though. So when you read the front, you're like, oh, this looks nice. We need warriors. Warriors need a manual. Wartime issue number 2. And they have a series of documents and manuals, which I haven't read, because once you click on the link, then you get more information about these different manuals and you can get them emailed to you, which I did not do, but I probably should just because I'm curious. Text Black to 79606 to download your copy of Wartime. So with that being said, let's talk to our good friend, Miss Julietta Henry, Director of Milwaukee County Elections. Hey, Julietta, how are you this morning?
Good morning. How are you?
I'm good, but I also have questions. So after you answer the questions, I will be much better. Okay. We have, I'd imagine, the highest number of people voting either by mail or by absentee in recent memory, if not ever. Is that correct so far?
That is correct.
Can you tell us about the process? Because there's been a lot of misinformation about what happens to your ballot. And there's some people that we had to overwhelmingly convince, even with a pandemic, that voting by mail is safer. When I receive my ballot and I fill it out and I have the envelope witness and I drop it in the mailbox, where does it go and what happens from that point forward to my ballot?
Sure. So well, first of all, thank you for allowing me to be on your show this morning. We really appreciate it. So to answer your question, after a person delivers their absentee ballot, however you deliver it, you can take it to the clerk's office, you can place it in one of the drop boxes that are throughout the city of Milwaukee anyways, and then or you can send it in the U.S. Postal. The unique thing that we have in place here is you can track your ballot. And if you go onto myvote.wi.gov, you can track the status of your ballot. You will see when it arrives into the clerk's office. Once it arrives, it is placed in a locked location so that no one can get to your ballot. And then on election morning, your ballot is either in the city of Milwaukee is taken to the central count location where they physically count every ballot. They place them in ward order, alphabetically, and they have teams of individuals for this election. They will have 3 shifts of individuals working around the clock starting at 7 a.m. to process the absentee ballots. Now,
I've heard that the ballots cannot be opened until the last poll closes. Is that accurate? Or
no.
Ballots that have been received, can they start to be processed now?
Ballots, no, they cannot be processed now. Ballots can be processed beginning at 7 a.m. on election morning. And they will be processed throughout the evening for most locations. And then once they're processed, either you're processing them at a polling location or central count. In Milwaukee County, there are 8 central count municipalities. and the other ones go directly to those polling locations. They can begin the process at 7 a.m.
Some ballots, and I know you know this, might come in a little bit ambiguous. You aren't really sure what the voter's intent was. You can try and figure it out. And because you have so many ballots that are coming in via mail, via absentee, it's not the same as voting on election day where you can literally ask the voter what their intent was, or they can just get another ballot on the spot. Is there a process to reconstruct a ballot where what the voter's intent was a little bit ambiguous, or do we just throw them out altogether?
No, absolutely not. So if an individual vote, and let's say you make a mistake on your ballot and you try to cross off one name and you clearly say, circle it and say, yes, this is the person I want to vote for. The ballot's not going to go in properly because you voted for two candidates in one position, and we know we can't do that. So what you will do is the poll workers at that location or at central count, they will reconstruct that ballot. The original ballot will be given a number, and on the actual ballot itself, that same number will be the same. So then if anyone ever questions, they can look at both ballots. They can see the intent of the voter was clearly there. There should be two people who reconstruct the ballots. One should be a Democrat, one should be a Republican. This is based on state statute. And they will sign at the very bottom that they were the ones who reconstructed the ballot.
We're speaking with Julietta Henry. She is the director of Milwaukee County elections. Julietta, we've heard a lot about these poll watchers and people that are going to be making sure there's no impropriety. Can you explain a little bit of how that works? So at Central Count, as an example in Milwaukee, if somebody wants to be an election observer, what kind of access do they have? And then how do we draw the line between someone being an observer and voter intimidation?
Right. So individuals can become an observer. You can just let the clerk know prior to the election you would like to become an observer, and you can observe the process. What you cannot do is interfere with the process. So throughout the process of absentee voting, for example, at Central Count, they will call the names out of every candidate, of every elector that they have an absentee ballot for. And your job is to listen and observe. Your job is not to question every single ballot that is processed, because if that's the case, then that's where we draw the line, and the election inspectors at that location will let you know what you can and cannot do. There are procedures to become an observer. You have to follow those guidelines. And due to COVID-19, they are going to be restrictions as to how many observers that individual chief inspector feels that can be in a location because of the limited space. And we're going to make sure that each chief inspector they will know based on their space and the size of their polling location, they will make that determination.
Because I do know that there are some polling locations that are only allowing 3, maybe 4 people in at a time because of the COVID-19 pandemic restrictions. But if there are people observing the election and they're in the space, they're actually taking away from the number of voters that can also be in that space at the same time, correct?
That is correct. So it is important to note that every ballot and every vote counts. And we will make sure, and the poll workers will make sure that voters are not at all, that the observers do not interfere with the voting process.
I know this probably sounds like something redundant, but in the event that someone does not have a witness sign the ballot envelope, you guys don't even open it? Is it just thrown away immediately?
That ballot would be rejected. If there is no witness signature, the ballot will be rejected. So that's why I encourage everyone to go to myvote.wi.gov right now, check the status of your ballot, verify that your ballot has been accepted by the clerk's office, because if you had not had a signature, most likely the clerk would have sent your ballot back to you and informed you that you need a signature.
Have we learned our lessons from April as the first state to hold an election literally in the middle of a pandemic? Have we learned things in April that we now can implement in November?
Absolutely, absolutely. April was a challenging election. This entire year has been a challenging election. However, I know the municipalities, along with the county and the state, we are well prepared for this election. We made sure everyone received their proper PPE in April as well, but for this election, we were able to send all of that out in August, actually. So we weren't as rushed trying to get things to everyone. So we're excited I'm excited personally, I can speak for myself, that we are a week and 1 day away from the election. It seemed like November would never get there here in April, but we're here, we're ready for it. And I'm just hoping that everyone exercise their right to vote. You can do it today. The in-person absentee polling locations are open. They're waiting for you. And they will go through for the city of Milwaukee only through next week, Sunday. So if you don't know where to go, check it out. Go to the website, the Milwaukee County website. We have a list of all of the in-person absentee voting sites. And I wanted to make sure I keep saying in person, not to be confused with early voting, because we do not early vote in the state of Wisconsin, but we are able to vote in person.
Okay, even with the number of mail-in votes and the number of people that are going to vote in person absentee, should individuals who want to vote on election day, because there's still plenty of them that don't trust the other processes, should they expect long lines? Or because of the number, and hopefully you have a few numbers for us, because of the numbers of people that have voted already and will vote between now and Sunday in the city of Milwaukee, do we think that lines on election day might be short?
Well, in comparing the election results of 2016, we had over 444,000 voters who voted on election day, or total, that's including your absentee ballots. Right now, as far as the number of absentee ballots that have been requested, we're at 287,000 ballots that have already been requested. And as far as those who voted in person, we're at 45,914 as of today. So that's over 300,000. I don't know what the voter turnout is going to be, but we have approximately 580,000 registered voters in Milwaukee County. And if we just do the math and let's guessing that we'll have an 80% voter turnout, that's 464,000. So
and you have over 300,000 votes already received?
Right, we have 219,189. I'm sorry, 287,256. 287,256 requests for absentees.
So
Now,
that does not mean those ballots have yet been returned.
well, let me tell you what the return is. So at this point, 219,189 have been returned, and we still have a week and a day left. So 76% of the individuals who requested absentee ballots have already returned them. So if we go with the return number of 219,189, then we add in there the 45,914, that's the total number of individuals who voted in person last week, and Tuesday through Sunday, that's 311,000. 311,000 individuals in Milwaukee County have already cast their ballot.
That
Election.
That's amazing. That's got to be
is.
truly inspiring for you as someone who's been doing this election work for a long time. I mean, we've always had, the permanent mail-in ballot list where there was just a sliver of people in the city or the county that always received their ballots by mail. But did you ever think you would see numbers like this?
No, absolutely not. And it's encouraging, but I also want to make sure individuals realize on election day, we now have to count these ballots. Every single ballot. I vote absentee. You may vote absentee. Every ballot must be counted. So individuals need to be patient. They need to understand the process. And we also need to just make sure that every vote is counted on election day. So
last question for you, Julietta. Do you think that we will know the Milwaukee County election results before we go to bed on election night? And I ask you that question because the eyes of the world are going to be on not just Wisconsin, but on Milwaukee, because we really took it on the chin for our lower voter participation in 2016. So the whole world and they mamas are going to be looking to see how Milwaukee turned out. Do you think we'll know election night, or will we need more time to process these ballots?
We will be here until we are done. On election day, it may not be at midnight, it may be at 6 a.m., but we will stay until we are completely done. We are anticipating, based on the number of absentees that have come in, we are anticipating a 3 o'clock or between 3 a.m. and 6 a.m. Completion time, because it does take a long time to process. The city of Milwaukee, they have 13 high-speed machines. Each machine can read approximately 2,000 ballots. I'm gonna say 1,500 to 2,000 ballots an hour, but those ballots have to be open first. So if we start at 7 a.m., they're gonna probably start processing ballots hopefully by 9 a.m. And if you do the math on the number of ballots that the city of Milwaukee has alone, they will probably have over 200,000 ballots. With 13 machines, it's going to still take 200,000 ballots divided by the 13 machines. That's still 15,000 ballots. And it's going to take at least, I'm going to be a little bit more conservative and say they can do 1,000, 1,250 an hour. And you just make that, that's still 12 hours. So if we start at 9 a.m., we're going to be going way past midnight.
All right, if y'all need old Sherwin to bring you some coffee, just let me know. I'll bring y'all some coffee. Julietta Henry, thank you so much for this information. I very well may reach out to you one more time because this information is so important and so vital, but I do thank you for taking the time this morning.
Thank you, and don't forget to vote.
Well, we're going to remind them. Don't you worry about that. You have a good day.
Have a good, you too, bye-bye.
Right. Okay, guys, well, so it's encouraging to know the number of people that have voted, but it also needs to be reiterated that all of those ballots are still in their envelopes and they are still sealed, and they cannot begin processing them until 7 a.m. on November 3rd. I am still torn on, do I go to Midtown or one of these other, there's a lot of locations in the city of Milwaukee where I can go and vote. Do I do it now and get it over with? Or do I go on election day? So over the weekend, I was like, okay, well, I'll go on Monday. I've got a relatively light schedule today. It's snowing. Hey, you guys seeing the snow? There's accumulating snow in the city of Milwaukee. So I don't know what I'm going to do. I mean, I'm going to vote, of course, because wouldn't I be the biggest hypocrite known to humankind if I didn't vote? It's just because it's almost like there's too many choices. There's so many options of where to vote and how to vote. And it's certainly too late to request a ballot by mail, which I did not do for a variety of reasons. I just didn't want an additional piece of mail that I requested coming through the postal service. I've seen a lot of inconsistencies, well, just in general, since I've been receiving mail essentially my whole life. I've seen a number of inconsistencies with the post office, but I also have a different perspective because both of my parents worked at and retired from the post office. And that's where they met each other, actually. And so I know intimately how the details of the post office work. And there was a day last week where I didn't receive my postal mail until 9 p.m. And there are a number of letter carriers and other postal employees who are members of our forum Facebook group. And they also are, to the best that they can, are talking about some of the inconsistencies that are happening with the post office. But let me be abundantly clear. Postal workers and letter carriers are some of the most dedicated public servants. So if there's some impropriety going on, chances are it is not them. The other thing is, so when I received all of these different flyers in the mail, and this was all on one day where let me make sure you guys can see these. Did I receive all of these on a single day? I don't know how many houses are on my personal letter, well, not my personal, our letter carrier's route, but this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pieces, including the militia recruitment that I received, plus whatever other mail that I got. if they're delivering to 50, 75, 100 houses on the route, that's an awful lot of mail they're carrying. So I didn't want to be another piece of mail by requesting my ballot, because going back to April, I knew that I wanted to do something different. I did vote by mail in April, but it just, I don't know, it felt unnatural because I'm just so used to going on election day. There have been times where I have voted early absentee. Back in 2004, I did it because it was a relatively new concept in Milwaukee, because back then it was only a small number of people. And Julietta had alluded to that. In the city of Milwaukee, there was a list, that there still is, of people that no matter what the election is, they're on the permanent absentee ballot list, where they get their ballots mailed to them before every single election, every single calendar year. That list was only 3,500 people. I can't imagine what that list is now with the coronavirus pandemic that is showing no signs of slowing. A few things we want to discuss today. So 1 month ago, Donald Trump nominated Amy Coney Barrett to the U.S. Supreme Court. She is set to be confirmed today. This will be the most partisan Supreme Court in 30 or more years. In fact, probably the most partisan confirmation in the history of the United States. And that is right on time, because Republicans have to get as much done as they possibly can, because just about all of them are realizing it could potentially be a loss for Donald Trump. But I do want to give some of the latest polling information. This election is not over. I don't want anyone to think that it's over. And I'm also a bit cautioned when I, have elections professionals on and we're talking about the huge numbers of people that are voting and what turnout is going to be. I think it's good for our democracy, but it isn't necessarily good for defeating Donald Trump, because in all of the ballots that are cast, some of them are going to be for Donald Trump, but then there's also a very disturbing trend. The disturbing trend is, as we get closer toward November 3rd, the polls are tightening. Donald Trump has made gains over the past week. How that is, I really don't know, but that trend cannot continue, because while Joe Biden has a lead overall nationally, national polls don't necessarily matter, because it doesn't matter if Joe Biden is up 20 points in California or in Oregon or in Washington State or New York or in Illinois. Those are already blue states. And if Joe Biden's margin or his lead in the polls goes up by another 5 points in California, 10 points in Illinois, that potentially could skew the national polling results. But it doesn't mean that Joe Biden is any closer to getting the electoral college votes that he needs. There's some things that I'm witnessing now that I also saw in 2016. So we learn some lessons, but we forget others. Remember how we used to complain that Hillary Clinton didn't come to Wisconsin, and we use that as an excuse, like, oh, had she come here, I would have voted for her. That's ridiculous, but we used it to try and put more pressure on the Democratic Party to give more attention to the state of Wisconsin, because as a small state, we're not a big state. We're 5.8 million people, maybe. They cut the census count short, so ain't no telling what Wisconsin's population is going to be now. But the fact that we get the attention of a battleground state, it is only because of the Electoral College that the issues that exist in Wisconsin can have some political solutions, because if the Electoral College votes that we have here are necessary to make someone president, then they really have to at least pretend to care about the voters in our small state of 5.8 million people. It makes sense why I got 5 pieces of mail just on Saturday. This isn't even counting the other pieces of political mail that I've received throughout the cycle. Joe Biden has been here. Kamala Harris has been here. A number of surrogates have been here. The amount of candidate travel and surrogates for the candidate that have been in Wisconsin in the year 2020, even during a pandemic, far outpaces anything the Democrats and Hillary Clinton did in 2016. So in that regard, our voices were heard, and that we wanted more time with the candidate. But we also got used to seeing Barack Obama in Wisconsin all the time. Barack Obama would come to Wisconsin for lunch. He was here all the time. He'd come to the Labor Festival. He would come to talk about healthcare. He'd come on Air Force One, give a bunch of people a bunch of high fives, and then he would leave. We got used to him coming here. And then Hillary Clinton didn't do it. Hardly at all, because she thought she had it in the bag, but that's water under the bridge. And I actually hate bringing up 2016, because there really aren't as many comparisons as we may think. This whole campaign is different, mostly because Joe Biden is a man. I hate to admit it, but there's some hope for Democrats. And I think the campaigns are much more like poetry. They're much more idealistic, and they put resources and they run commercials and they try to have a message that resonates with voters in these states that aren't traditionally Democratic. Because I think in the mind's eye of Democratic campaign professionals and strategists, Democrats can win Texas, we can win Florida, we can win Ohio, because the voters are angry and they're frustrated, and they have this, this wish list of states that they believe they can convince to vote for Joe Biden. That's in an ideal world. And so what Democrats are trying to do is capture more territory. There will be a moment in time when states like Georgia, South Carolina, and Texas will be blue states. And I think what happened in the year 2020 and even going into the midterm elections of 2022 will help accelerate the process of how the South is becoming the new South and will be much more liberal and progressive in its leanings politically, but not yet. And because these campaigns are so idealistic and they think that, wow, people are really angry and they're really tired of Donald Trump, which they are, but getting someone to change their political affiliation is extremely difficult to do. And I know you guys know that, because think about how hard the conversation is to have with a Trump supporter. And you have all of the data and information and fact you need to convince anybody not to vote for Donald Trump, yet they still do it. And because of the sentiment, a national sentiment of voters where people have a number of anxieties about COVID and about their health care and about wages, 10,000 different corporations that own real estate in America have filed to evict just about everybody who lives in their dwelling. So there's a lot of anxiety about that, but people are not necessarily going to say, to ease my anxiety, I'm going to vote for the Democrats. And I think the Biden campaign is doing something that the Clinton campaign did erroneously and prematurely, trying to campaign and spend a lot of resources in states that are traditionally red. They're spending money in Texas. I would always advise against that. Now, you can't ignore Texas. Technically, you could. And if the sentiment of Texas voters, if enough of Texas voters, and maybe it's because of immigration, but immigration in Texas is a lot different than how people feel about immigration in Wisconsin. We are nowhere near the US-Mexico border in Wisconsin. So essentially, who cares what we think about immigration? It doesn't have the same real, tangible, immediate effect. If somebody crosses the border into Wisconsin, where'd you come from? Minnesota, Iowa, Illinois. But in the state of Texas, the issues of immigration are different. And maybe people are siding with the Democrats as opposed to Donald Trump's failed border wall. But the fact that some of these Democratic strategists that are controlling how the Biden campaign spends its money and the geography in which it spends its money thinks that Texas is realistic. They also think that Georgia is realistic. Georgia would make more sense because Stacey Abrams lost by 50,000 votes. She got cheated. But to take the Stacey Abrams loss in the midterm elections of 2018 and to think that the state of Georgia could be a blue state. Now, let me be clear about this. With the amount of money that Joe Biden has, he's raised, over the last 3 months, $900 million probably, give or take, really close to $1 billion. It certainly raised $1 billion this year. There's no question about that. And if you have the additional resources to get people out to vote, to encourage them to vote, to run more television commercials, to run more damn YouTube ads. Oh, I'm scared to go on YouTube. But you don't be scared to go on YouTube because no commercials are running on my channel yet. Please like and subscribe to the channel. The Democrats are trying to turn these traditionally red states blue. Hillary Clinton did the same thing. Instead of coming to Wisconsin, she spent an inordinate amount of time in the Southwest, in Nevada, in Arizona. And just because of demographic shifts, and that's what some of these, white nationalist groups are afraid of, the demographic shifts in this country, the data behind those demographic shifts will be in the census. So that's why Donald Trump ordering his administration to stop the census count was smart, because what you're going to show on paper is still a heavy and hefty white majority in this country. And we know that's not the case. And also because we know the people who, and even if you're not an American citizen, you get counted in the census. Let's make sure that everybody knows that information. And if we count everybody, especially racial minorities in this country, we will see that their numbers are actually higher than people would ever understand and believe if it was not for the census. But traditionally, African Americans and Latinos are undercounted and underrepresented in the census. And so by Trump stopping the count early, it is going to prolong for at least another 10 years, unless we do these informal census counts in the interim, that the white majority in this country is actually fading away. And if you're afraid of that, well, then you probably have some kind of racist tendencies, because Black and brown people only want to live in an America that is much more idealistic than it is right now. And with that comes, apparently, starting a militia. Good morning, everybody. Get to my hellos this morning on the YouTube. Erratic says it's snowing for y'all too. Yes, it is. Erratic, good morning to you. Tammy Reed, how many polling locations will be open on November 3rd? So we have 100 and I'm gonna tell you from Milwaukee. If you go back to the video where I interviewed Common Council President Chevy Johnson, he starts out in his interview by saying the number of polling locations we have open. We have 183. 170 or 175 are going to be open. Now, in the event, because that's only a handful, less than 10 that won't be open, and I hope that they're going to be combined with other nearby locations. But if you live in an area where your polling location is not one of the 7 or 8 that will not be open on November 3rd, hopefully you receive some kind of notification telling you where your polling location has moved to or the nearest place you can vote. I would say go to myvote.wi.gov and they will tell you where your polling location is, and if it has been moved or closed for whatever reason, hopefully the information of where you go vote should be on that website. Is there a website to see the statistics that Julietta gave? So there's a variety of different places where you can get data. When I receive the election information in my inbox, I'm going to post it right away because I get county data, so you can track all 72 counties. So basically the information that Julietta gave in our conversation is available for all 72 counties. How many ballots were requested, how many ballots were actually received by people, and how many of those received ballots have been turned in. And so hopefully that information will be available sometime late morning, early afternoon, and I will post that. I think if you go to the different municipal websites, they may have something, but the thing about how government websites are set up, they're not user-friendly. They're antiquated and they're kind of backwards. So when I receive the information, then I will post it for all of you to share. Karen Siegler says, very helpful. Cyber trainer Judy B, that was very informative. Tammy Reed, thanks, Julietta. Thanks for that interview, Sherwin. Thank you, Tammy. Vanessa G, vote early, Sherwin. You don't want to be caught in the madness on November 3rd. You're right, I don't. But I kind of want to see it. Like, am I going to see like tanks rolling down the streets? Am I going to see the National Guard? Am I going to see the Aryan nations descending upon the north side of Milwaukee with their guns and Confederate flags? Of course not. But I just want to, because we're going to have to recall a lot of this year for people that were too young or were not yet born in 2020. And so I just want to, kind of soak it up. I want to soak up the experience. I don't want to soak up the Rona. Will y'all please stop going to Applebee's and please wear masks? The Rona is getting out of control. Tammy Reed, I got to say, I dropped my mom's ballot in the box at a library and wondered, is this thing fireproof? There was a ballot box fire that they then ruled an arson in California. But the city of Milwaukee, I can't speak for the county because the county is a different universe. They're under surveillance. The ballot drop boxes around the city. There's an eye in the sky watching the boxes. Tammy Reed says, but it's been received, which is good. Lisa Miller says, good morning. Cyber trainer Judy B. At Tammy, Josh and I did the same thing and wondered the same as you. However, the next day it showed received. am very happy. They're collected every day. But see, that's the difference between the city of Milwaukee, and people always complain about, it's mostly people from outside of Milwaukee complaining about how high the taxes are here. Property taxes are higher and other fees that we have to pay. I mean, if I look at just what I pay to register my vehicle, it is highway robbery, but we have more access to voting and early voting in more locations, and we have drop boxes that are monitored under surveillance, and we have all of those amenities here, which ultimately ensures the protection of our elections and helps boost the integrity of our elections because of those taxes. Would you rather pay nothing in taxes and then not have all of this access to democracy, not have early voting locations, or have reduced days and hours of early voting location than not pay hardly anything in taxes? When you look at it as an investment, and this is why the people in the city of Milwaukee, really everywhere, need to be much more involved in the voting process. I've always said that if more money is needed to ensure the integrity of our elections, then our members of the Common Council and our county board need to allocate that money, because it's not worth. And here's the thing, because property taxes and the money and like the pots of money that they go into to pay for different services, it's like 30 or 40 cents a person. It's not even like it's tremendous investment, especially if you don't own a house. You're not even paying property taxes. But to have the resources to make sure that our elections are safe and secure, how is that not worth it? It's the whole point of why we pay taxes, so that we can make sure that the services exist and that we have the necessary resources to make sure that our elections are safe and protected. Okay, cool, we good, wonderful. Let's talk about this lady that's about to ruin the Supreme Court for the next 40 years. Senate Republicans are poised to confirm President Donald Trump's Supreme Court nominee, Judge Amy Coney Barrett, today, a major victory for the president and his party just days before November 3rd. Their promises to push the high court to a more conservative direction for generations to come. The stakes in the Supreme Court battle are immense and come at a pivotal time in American politics in the run-up to an election where control of Congress and the White House are on the line. So Chuck Schumer, was it Chuck Schumer or Dick Durbin? Dick Durbin is a senator from Illinois. Just essentially admitted on one of the morning talk shows I was watching. He's like, yeah, there's nothing we can do. There's nothing we can do. I learned a lot about government in the last 4 years. A lot. I was under this impression, and maybe it was because of the curricula that I studied about civics and about government and whatever, that certain things just couldn't happen. They weren't going to happen in America with elected officials, with the president. They just couldn't do certain things. There were rules, there were, parameters that were set. There were, consequences if certain actions take place. Like you can't do certain things. It was all based on trust. We trusted these people that they wouldn't try to enrich themselves. We trusted these people that they would not make friends of our enemies. We trusted the federal government to do the right thing, but in a partisan way, because we do have political parties. I want to talk about that in a second as well, because young people are a lot less patient with a two-party system, and I need the young people. When I say young, what's young? I'm 45, so young is 30, 33. I don't know. I want those that are utterly disgusted with having to vote for Joe Biden. I need you to know that I understand that. And I used to be argumentative with people when I'm not saying that anymore, because now I understand people's disgust with the system, because when you add it all up and subtract whatever is left, the two-party system essentially got us this: a failure to communicate and to compromise and to move the needle forward. It did. I am not by any means saying that a third party is going to fix, correct, and rectify all of this. But right now, we don't even let third parties breathe. I'm willing to have that conversation next year in 2020. I'm willing to have a third party conversation in the year 2023. Because we need the midterms in 2022 to finish what may have been started in 8 days from now. So we need to give me one more election, and then I will in earnest begin the discussion about legitimate and viable third parties. But I do want young people to know that I understand your level of tolerance for what is happening in this country is not what older generations' level of tolerance is. I, me, us, we have gotten used to things being slow to change. Even if it's obvious what the changes need to be, we, I, us have gotten used to it. I didn't grow up in an age of instantaneous gratification, whether it's a consumer good or a product that you order, whether it's information. I didn't grow up with things. The moment you think of it, you can have it, or it can be on its way. Whatever it is that you want, whatever it is that you can think of, you can order or have access to it on the internet. I didn't grow up, and that has not, formed who I am as a human being. I used to go to the library for stuff and make photocopies of encyclopedia pages and use a stapler to staple the stuff, and then you read it. And then by the time you get home and you read whatever you photocopied out of your reference, but by the time you get home, it's already outdated. I grew up in a world, I, me, us, we, grew up in a world where reference books were published once a year. There are updates to information and human knowledge several times an hour, if not several times a minute. I grew up in a world, I, us, we, where information was updated annually in an encyclopedia. And if you didn't have the money for an encyclopedia, you were SOL. Now it's not like that. And I fail to realize the patience that people don't have when it comes to social change, because if you can get anything else almost instantaneously, communication over the internet, a lot of folks don't know this, moves at the speed of light through fiber optic cables and black magic voodoo, whatever they do to make the internet appear in front of your face and in your phone, travels at the speed of light. Information moves that quickly. So with that being said, why is social change so incredibly difficult to achieve when it seems to be pretty obvious that the police are killing people more than they should? When it seems to be wages need to go up, but they are not. It seems that women should be making the same amount of pay as a man if they have the same experience. So why would someone be patient, especially if you're telling somebody who's in their 20s, who is growing up in a world of, we told them to go to college, they went to college, now they're drowning in student debt, they're not likely to be homeowners. As a matter of fact, they're not even likely to live on their own just yet. They can't even exercise a level of independence because the economy is tilted away from them and tilted toward rich people. If you're living in that every single day, I understand why you wouldn't have patience for me and us and we that think that they just need to wait. Well, if you wait until the Democrats get the majority in the courts and the Congress and in the presidency, then maybe, and even then, it's not going to guarantee that these things that should be remedied and rectified, 100 years ago, are going to get fixed or even going to get addressed. I understand. But with that being said, it is important for those who are having their first interaction with the political system, and some people are voting for the first time. A lot of people are voting for the first time. Shaquille O'Neal, at 48 years old, is voting for the first time. Shaq, if you're listening, and I don't know why you wouldn't be, and Shaq, if you are listening, please subscribe to the page and click the little notifications bell. Shaquille O'Neal. If I had never voted before, and if I was Shaquille O'Neal, which I clearly am not, I wouldn't have admitted that. Because you can just go back in your mind and think of all of the elections in the last 30 years because Shaq was turned 18 30 years ago, all the elections that he missed. And he's not the only one. And for those that are considerably younger and have less fame and wealth than Shaquille O'Neal that are voting for the first time, first and foremost, thank you, because you certainly didn't have to do so. But also, it is important to have a real thorough understanding. And sometimes that thorough understanding is very frustrating, to know how this entire process works, to know how a bill becomes a law and how difficult and how arduous and how uphill that process is. And that is on purpose. When the foundation was laid for this country, It wasn't so that good, perfect, wonderful pieces of legislation get signed into law. It's so no bad legislation ever makes it to an executive's desk. It's a very different process. It's not like, oh, this bill makes sense, let's just pass it. No. Because in what looks like a good bill, a good proposal, a good policy are really terrible and sinister things in the fine print. And so the process is painstaking. And what we do is we leave this very difficult and painstaking process up to legislators. We elect them and we walk away. We elect them, we think we did something fantastic and wonderful, and we walk away and we leave them to their own devices. While we walk away after the election, because there are some people that legitimately are going to think that they're done with the process, they're done being involved after they cast their vote. No, boo-boo. Once you vote, that's when it starts. Because if we are not constantly maintaining and keeping up with and following and paying attention to what they do once we vote for them, that's when the special interests come in. Because we've walked away. Some people are not going to pay attention for 4 more years. They don't care. You have to stay involved. Democracy is the kind of force that requires constant maintenance. Now, here's the thing. We want to maintain a democracy. Do you want them to maintain it? Democrats, Republicans, nonpartisan folks, legislators, appointees, do you want them to be the caretakers of the democracy? Donald Trump and his family, do you want them to do it, or do you want us to do it? And that's a simple yes or no question. That is about as easy as I can explain it. Who do you want to be the caretakers, those that are the eye in the sky of what they are doing? And we have a lot of freedom of information as voters and as members of this country. You can do an open records request of any elected official, their phone records, their text messages, their emails. You can do that. They may not comply right away. They might try to charge you per copy, but we, as the supposed caretakers of this democracy, have access to information. That's why they can't meet in secret. Meetings have to be public. Not only do the meetings have to be public, they have to give us notice. But when you look a little bit closer at that. So let's say there's a very big fire and police commission meeting where we're deciding on who the next chief is going to be, or there's some kind of a budget hearing. You may not get a lot of notice 24 hours, or they'll send out the press release at 4 o'clock or 4:30 on a Friday for a meeting that's on Monday. That's because they don't want us to be involved. Legally, they have to give us notice about these big decisions that they make. And so what they'll sometimes do, especially if the decisions could be considered controversial, if a large number of people knew what was going on, they send the press release and a meeting notice very quietly, right before the weekend starts when nobody's paying attention. I would like to think that one of the lessons that we will learn from this year, assuming that we make it through the year, I'm still leaving room for a war to start. I don't know why. I just figured Donald Trump would have started a war because presidents like war. Or maybe Donald Trump did start a war. He started a war within the nation. Still leaving room for a war. But maybe one of the lessons that we learned from 2020 is that we can't leave elected officials to their own devices to be the caretakers of our democracy. We need to be much more aggressive with the direction in which those that we elect go. They can't get lazy, they can't get complacent, because I don't know if we have an issue that can wait. Climate can't wait, jobs can't wait, relief for coronavirus can't wait, help for businesses can't wait, doctors, nurses, medical professionals, frontline workers, nobody can wait, because the virus is very elegant. It's smarter than we are. Can we admit that? We don't know what to do with it. We don't know if we should go to Applebee's or order DoorDash. What do? Do you go to the grocery store? The virus is smart because it didn't just attack the vulnerability of the human being, the human body, the human immune system. The virus attacked our freedom. That's one bad MF. It said, you enjoy liberty, you enjoy doing what you want, you enjoy summer days, you enjoy activities, you enjoy leisure activities and going on vacations and getting on airplanes and doing whatever you want. You enjoy touching people and hugging people. Hell, you enjoy touching your face. The virus said, I'm going to kill you if you do those things. We can't conceptualize it. I got to reassess what the world is every single day. Every day. It's attacking our freedom. Like that's, when you think about it, the genius of this organism that says if you act like regular, normal human beings in the course of a day, it's a crapshoot with your life. Melissa said, snow is done, go vote. I mean, I can't go vote now. Here's what I'll do, because some of y'all may not believe old Sherwin. When I go vote, I'll turn on my camera so y'all can, but I can't take it in the polling location. I mean, I can try, but Stephanie Finley, the chair of the Milwaukee Election Commission, would probably have me arrested. Jay says, political education has always been lacking. We, the people, should be asking, why isn't this a priority from our educational system? Absolutely agree. They don't want most people to vote. The people that do vote in every election, the demographic of those people are very specific. They know how the process works. They have a lot invested. They have a lot to lose. They have a lot to gain. And they oftentimes can have a much more direct interaction with policymakers, those that vote all the time in every single election, because it's very telling. Someone that votes in every election, when I say every election, some of y'all have never voted for school board. And so we complain about political education. How many of you even know who your school board director is? You don't know. You don't know. You have no idea. So no, I agree that they don't want us to vote because then they can have their way with a system that doesn't represent the non-voter like it represents the voter himself or herself. It's two very different systems. But I also would say not only is political education lacking, just education on race and culture, that's lacking as well. Some of that is our fault. And now more so than ever, because the people that are learning more about race now and the interactions of race and the institutional racism, which even if you say those words, and I try and use different terminology when I'm engaging somebody, because if you are white and have lived in white neighborhoods and white communities and have gone to white schools and you have a white job and you have white employees, institutional racism makes no sense to you because you as that person, you're the institution and you just don't see it. That's how it works. Racism works like the virus. It attacks your freedoms. It's unsuspecting. You can't always see it. You can see what it does when somebody is infected. Then you can see the symptoms. But other than that, it just kind of floats around aimlessly looking for an ignorant, unsuspecting victim. But we've learned a lot about the fact that we haven't learned a lot, and the people that are shocked that because some people have, done their research. And they're like, oh, wow, Black people actually had it rough in this country. Oh, I had no idea that it was that bad for some of them every single day, all of the time. But now those people who are shocked by these revelations, and I guess better late than never, it pains me when someone who is 60 years old just starts to, it's someone who's lived through the 1960s is just starting to realize that racism still exists. Institutional racism still exists, that they are a part of the institution of the racism that still exists. And now they're homeschooling their kids or their grandkids. Now you're the school teacher. You can teach your children, your grandchildren, or whomever what it took you 60 years to find out, or 50 years, or 40 years to find out. Your kids can know it at 7. They will be better people because the world that you leave your children is not going to be like the ones that you or I grew up in. They're going to be even less tolerant of this nonsense. And what I hope, because I hope to be an old person one day, because I love old people, because like you've earned your right to just not give a shit. But I don't want things to move so quickly where they completely pass me by and I just can't keep up, because us have gotten used to a process that's just slow and cumbersome and very lazy, and we'll take our time in fixing some of these things. In the meantime, take inventory of all the wonderful things that we do have. Children are growing up there's going to be like 2 different Americas. There's pre-2020 and then post-2020. There's going to be so many different things. They're going to want to move very, very quickly and maybe put some blame on us, the pre-2020 people. Why didn't we move on some of these things faster? Why do we leave all of this for another generation to have to fix? But Jay, to answer your question, yes, political education is lacking. Okay, so I got a few things here. Oh, I got to tell you guys about the guests we're having this week. We got some major guests. Tomorrow, State Representative Kalen Haywood II, the youngest state representative elected in the country. He was just 19 years old when he was elected in the midterms of 2018. He is running for re-election, and so we're going to ask Kalen Haywood II about his list of accomplishments being the youngest state legislator in the United States of America, because admittedly so, your standard can't be high for someone who is 19 years old when they get sworn in to represent 55,000 people. This young man has mounted a level of accomplishment in 2 years by the time he turned 21 that some people who have been in Madison for a decade have not accomplished nearly as much as him. So we're going to talk to him tomorrow. On Wednesday, City of Milwaukee Mayor Tom Barrett joins us live. And then also now I'm going to keep it a secret. I have another guest on Wednesday, a big guest. I'm not going to tell you. Thursday, we have State Representative Jason Fields, who is soon to be former State Representative Jason Fields. He did not seek re-election, and Dora Drake won the Democratic primary back in August, and she is on the ballot November 3rd, vying to replace Jason Fields. So we're going to talk about Jason and what appears, at least temporarily, to be the ending of his political career. We're going to talk to Jason. And then on Friday, Alderman Aaron Perry, who some of you know used to be a Republican, came on my broadcast radio show a couple of years ago and changed his party from Republican to Democrat. Now Aaron Perry is running in the 97th Assembly District in Waukesha County, which is a conservative 60+% Republican leaning district. But because Aaron changed his party affiliation from Republican to Democrat, he is now running as a Democrat to try and flip a Waukesha County seat in the Wisconsin State Assembly. We're going to talk to him. And also, any elected officials that are members of this thing that we do called the Forum, the forum2.com, if you are members of the group and you want to talk to a very politically astute cohort of people, by all means, let me know. I'll send you a Zoom invitation. You click the link and you can talk to the people. So, big guest this week, looking forward to it. And then I'm going to continue that momentum into November 3rd. I also am still trying to sort out what kind of election coverage I want to provide to you all on November 3rd. I was thinking of doing, this thing I used to do called Election Central, where I broadcast for 13 straight hours. I don't know if I want to be tied to this house and my office for 13 hours on election day, because they might need Sherwin to do rapid response. I don't know who the hell would need Sherwin to do rapid response, but I'm letting you know I'll be there for you if you need me. So we'll figure it out. And every day I wake up feeling different, so I don't, who knows over the next 8 days how things are going to play out. This one comes from the USA Today. With just 8 days to go before the election, both national poll and swing state surveys make it clear the race for president is tightening. President Donald Trump gained on his Democratic challenger Joe Biden in national polling averages and in 9 of 12 contested states. But Biden still holds a sizable lead in the national polls and is still ahead of Trump in 10 of the 12 states that could decide the election. Biden's average lead is only 3 percentage points or more in 5 of the swing states, but those include the crucial states of Michigan, Pennsylvania, and of course, Wisconsin that Trump flipped in 2016. And while Trump grew his modest lead in Ohio and cut Biden's lead in Arizona, Florida and Georgia further down to size. He also lost ground in Texas and traditionally Republican Iowa. The national average. USA Today average of averages, Biden 51.4, Trump 42.9, that's Biden plus 8.6%. But last week, and here's where the trend is very disturbing, guys. Last week, Biden was at 51.9, Trump was at 42.1. Trump has gone up by 0.8 of a percentage point. Trump has gone up by 0.8, Biden has gone down by 0.5 percentage point. That's not good. And just looking, assuming the election could be decided, because I'm going to equate, even though I shouldn't, the popular vote to the electoral college vote, Biden right now being at 51% is within the margin of error of any of these polls. Meaning that in some states where it looks like Biden is up 3, he might be down 2. And so it gets very tricky. All I know is this. The more people that vote, especially first-time voters, are going to be voting for Democrats. That's statistically, that is what has held true. Now, I also know this, and this frightened me a little bit because everything scares me because the world is essentially on fire. There were a number of non-voters in 2016, and we were always under the impression the non-voters didn't vote for Hillary Clinton because they didn't like her. Well, the non-voter section of people, because now more people are coming out of the woodwork with all these different agencies and these, polling surveys, that people are being much more forthcoming about their political affiliations and who they're going to vote for now. Because it is a topic of conversation when you have by the time I get done here with 50, are we close to 60 million people that have already voted? Half of the American electorate has already voted. And it's a week, 8 days before the election day. And so because it's such a prominent topic everywhere, how you're going to vote, when you're going to vote, make a plan to vote, people are being much more honest, I believe, about who they're going to vote for. There are a number of non-voters didn't vote in 2016 that are now breaking toward Trump. I never thought in a million years. I was under the impression that every single person that didn't vote, that could have voted, that was an eligible voter, would have voted for Hillary Clinton. Not true. The Trump campaign is doing something, I don't know what the hell it is, that they are encouraging those that didn't cast a ballot in 2016 to vote for Trump, and they are breaking for Trump. And that could be this evidence that I'm reading now of the race beginning to tighten. The RCP poll has Biden at 50.8%, Trump at 42.8, 35.8 has Biden at 52.0, Trump at 42.9. Swing state averages, Arizona, Biden is up 2.7 points. Florida, Biden is up 1.9 percentage points. Georgia, Biden is up by 0.5 percentage point. Iowa, Biden is up by 1.1 percentage points. Michigan, Biden is up by 7.8 percentage points. Minnesota, Biden is up by 7.1 percentage points. Nevada, Biden is up by 5.8 percentage points. North Carolina, Biden 1.9. Ohio, Trump +1. Pennsylvania, Biden +5.4. Texas, Trump is up 1.7. Wisconsin, Biden is up 5.7 percentage points. All right, guys. I guess when it comes down to it, you need to vote. When it comes down to it, I guess Sherwin needs to vote. Either I vote or I join a militia. You can't really tell, but this, hold on. Why is it not picking it up? Hey, everybody. Hey, I'm finna join the militia. He has gold teeth. Like, I'm not kidding you. The guy on the militia flyer has gold teeth. Thank you, Julietta Henry. Tomorrow we talk to Kaylin Haywood II, who represents the 16th Assembly District, the youngest state legislator elected in America. We're going to see what that young man has done in the last 2 years to see if that justifies him getting another term in the Wisconsin State Assembly. Thanks, guys. Have a great day. I'll see you tomorrow.